Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we're talking all about the cost of my FTE-swapped Cruiser. I asked if you guys wanted a detailed breakdown. A few of you were interested, so I thought I'll make the video and it'll help you decide on whether this is something that is worth doing. I've got the full cost breakdown for you guys. I'm gonna tell you what I've spent, what I sold off, and whether it was worth it. If you're considering doing a similar build or just curious about how the numbers add up, be sure to stick around to the end. And trust me, you're gonna wanna hang around because I'll give you guys the real numbers. I'll compare it to what's on the market now, if I would do it again, and things that I would do differently. Let's kick things off with the essentials. If you're doing an FTE swap, here's what you absolutely need and what it costs. So first up is the 100 series with the FTE. This is the donor car for the engine swap, which I imported from Japan. I paid 19,312 Australian dollars for it. This included the cost of the car, the broker's fees, and shipping it to Australia. If you want to see the import process in more detail and see what it would cost to just import a 100 series and register it as it is, I'm going to put a link to a video here where I did an in-depth rundown of that whole process start to finish. So then you've got to grab a second car for the swap. I went for the FZJ 105, which is a petrol 105 series Land Cruiser. This set me back $11,000. If you buy a diesel 105, it'll have more of the parts that you need for the swap, but you'll pay more for it. I bought a petrol one with some great mods, cheap enough to justify the petrol model. These are the big ticket items right off the bat. Now you're going to need some basic bits like radiator hoses, sumps, exhausts, engine mounts, and a couple of other bits. All in all, these parts for me came to around $3,400. Again, I have a detailed video showing exactly what you need here, so I'll post a link to that one also. So with what we've discussed so far, that's all the basics you need to do the cab swap and the FTE onto a 105 chassis. This would put you at around $35,000 budget to have a basic FTE 105 setup. Let's talk about the extras that I'd say should be done whilst you're doing the swap to ensure that everything runs smoothly into the future. You'll want a new radiator and shroud. These cost about $600, so I think it's small insurance to pay for something that will protect the engine long term. And if you're looking to unleash the FTE and make a bit more power, a turbo upgrade is a good idea, especially if your FTE has higher kilometers, as the factory turbo does get tired with age. I personally went with a UFI 21L. This cost about $2,700, but there's a ton of options to suit all budgets. You can spend more, you can spend considerably less. And of course, what's a new turbo without matching it to a quality intercooler and a good transmission cooler to keep things safe? These will run you about $2,300, but you've got to trust me on this. It will be worth it to get the most out of this engine. I also went ahead and did the body mounts, which are about 650 bucks. Whilst you're partway through the swap, this is the perfect time to change these. So with those few extra upgrades done, you're now closer to the $40,000 mark, but you have something with a few critical upgrades and heaps more future potential. Okay, so let's talk about where I might have gone a little bit overboard. And it's not that I regret any of it, but it's extra stuff that definitely makes the Land Cruiser stand out. It's things that I wanted to do to it. It personalizes the car, and it's gonna be perfect for how we plan to use it into the future. I went and bought a new rear bar. This was around $2.5 grand. You can see here it was unpainted. The quality is great and it was a little bit cheaper. Buying it unpainted, I'm gonna be painting it in a future episode very soon. And I also went and bought new wheels from Japan. Now, these were a little bit expensive, but I had dreams about them being on the car, so it had to be done. The rear bar was $2.5 grand. The wheels from Japan were about 2,300 delivered to my door. And I figured if I'm going to this much effort to build something like this, I want it to look exactly how I want it to look. Then of course, there's things like the new tires. So a couple of the tires on the car that I bought were okay, I kept them, but I needed to replace a couple that were just a bit too far gone. This came to another $1,150. I threw in a new fuel tank, which if you've watched my last video, you'd see why I did that. I think it's a game changer, and it also just made sense with the swap that I've done. That was another $1,620, $630 roughly. Finally, I couldn't miss the opportunity to paint the chassis and eventually the bar work too. I bought all the paint for that. The chassis got painted whilst it was pulled apart, and that was about another $550. So it's not all just throwing money into the fire. This bit takes a tiny bit of the pain away. I sold off a bunch of parts from both cars as well. I got about 5.5 grand back, and that is considering that the 105 I bought, the cab was pretty much unusable. A lot of the panels were beat up, so there could be a lot more money to recoup if you buy one that has a relatively straight and clean body. I sold off parts from the 100 series for about $700 of that money, and the 105 part out got me almost $5,000 back. So whilst it's not a lot in the scheme of things, it definitely helped offset the final cost for me. If I wasn't using the Japanese cab also, there would have easily been another few $1,000s there in part out. So that's definitely something worth considering. Okay, so here's the part that you guys are all here for. It's the final tally. The whole cost of this build was a total of $48,193. But after selling off parts, that brought the total back down to $42,613. Now, in my opinion, that's not too bad for a Land Cruiser that's got a 1HD FTE turbo diesel engine. It's got a bunch of great upgrades, and it's also been modified to suit what I want, so it's personalized as well. I think another advantage of what I've done is because I built it all myself, I've had the chance to check over the whole thing front to back. I replaced lots of service items along the way, and now I have total confidence in every part of it. I'm not going to be worried about things that might be old that I can't really see clearly letting go whilst we're, a long way from home. That comes to the next point of, was it worth it? So I think I need to take a step back and talk about value here for a second. With the total cost at $42,000, like I said, I get a fresh, solid build with a low kilometer engine, around 250,000 Ks, all the performance upgrades I wanted. There was no shortcuts made with any part of this, and I was able to sell a few bits to make some money back along the way. So we're gonna move up into my office next, and we're gonna take a look at what's on the market today. FTE-swapped 105s, give a cost comparison for what you get. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm just going to screen record on my phone. We're going to have a look at a few other examples of FTE 105s that are on the market at the moment that I've found, and just see what the value proposition looks like. This is the first one I found. It's a 2004, so it's a late model. It's actually sold since I saved it, so it would be interesting to know what this sold for. If you're on watching this video and that was your car, let me know what you sold it for. So it's up for 64.5. Originally, it got dropped to 61,300 and it's been sold from that point. 2004 FTE converted 105, fully set up, engineered. So we'll go through the photos here. It looks pretty clean. There's some, it looks really clean underneath. It's got some gauges, a nice setup in the back. Carpeted floor, so GXL interior. Late models, so you get the 5-speed auto. The Ks are quite a bit higher. It's got 327,000 Ks on the body. I'm not sure about the engine. Some nice mods under the bonnet, airbox. Looks like a front mount. It looks very clean. This looks like it's been very well built. So the 5-speed auto, which there's a lot of argument about what's better on that one. It's smoother but weaker than the 4-speed intercooler airbox. It's got lots of really good stuff. It's been tuned. Everything's been rebuilt. It's all in like brand new condition. So it looks like a proper job. Around the 60 mark, so quite a bit more than what mine owes me. 327,000 Ks, so higher kilometers. In my personal opinion, I think mine is better value than what we're looking at here. Just because 61 is very high, and if you buy it at 61, it's probably still not, if you bought it for high 50s even, it's probably still not exactly what you want, so you're still spending more money sort of perfecting that. But it looked like a good clean car, and it's sold. So this one is in Victoria. This one is 62,000, so another one that's quite expensive. 2004, so late model again. Front and rear lockers, like what mine has. Bull bar side steps, similar to mine. They've got a winch. It's got Stratos seats. Looks like it's got a decent setup in the back of it. This one's got a lot of good stuff in it again. Pretty tidy looking. It's got a few mods. Looking at 305,000 Ks. The 5-speed auto again, basic drawers. It's another pretty nice setup. The engine has not been modified. Stock, looks like stock intercooler, stock airbox. Got a long range tank in the back. It's got a lot of good stuff in it again. I think mine is better spec than what this one is. And we don't know how many Ks are on the FTE in this one. So again, I think that mine is comfortably or building your own is better value than buying something like this at 62,000. It's a lot more money. It's still not everything you want. And you're getting a lot of unknowns when you go for something like that. So this one is 45,000. So it's a very similar cost to what mine owes me at this stage. It's another late model. This one is a base model barn door. So some people might prefer that. I don't. I prefer to have the more spec'd up GXL. 305,000 on the body again. Nice setup in the back. It's got a few goodies in it, a few good bits and pieces. Again, we've got an airbox, intercooler. It looks like it's had a fair bit of effort put into it, a G-turbo potentially. So let's go to the description and have a look, hey? Okay, the good. 60,000 on engine and gearbox, super low. Lots of good mods there. The bad, ARB links does not work. Rims aren't great, but usable. Does not come with the fridge. A few small dents and pinstripes. Okay. Yeah, it looks like it's got some good stuff in it. It sounds like the body's not ideal. It's a fair way off how I would build it, but looks like a good solid car. 45,000. So very similar cost basis to the one that I've built, but that looks pretty solid. So then we'll finish with this guy here. So this one's a little bit less than what I paid for mine, and I'm assuming it's negotiable as well. It's another base model. It's an early model like mine. It's got some nice stuff on it. Very basic interior. What are we looking at here on the body? 404,000, so quite a few Ks on the body and chassis. It's got a top mount. FTE, okay, engine's done approximately 404,000 kilometers, body has around 384. So yeah, again, look, really high Ks, pretty basic in terms of modifications by the look of it. A little bit cheaper than mine, but by the time you add the few basic things to bring it to a similar spec, you're gonna go way over what I've spent so far. So based on those few cars that are available on the market at the moment, I would definitely say that building my own was excellent value. Like it's almost always gonna work out cheaper to build it yourself rather than buy one already done and then turn it into what you want it to be. So I thought I'd chuck that in. There's a few comparisons. I hope that was interesting. Let's get back to the garage and finish this video off. So yeah, look, in my opinion, it was totally worth it, especially when you look at what you get in return. It's way cheaper than buying a build like this outright and then modifying it to your own taste. Also, I think this is one of those rare projects where if you need to sell it for any reason, you'll get all or most of your money back, although I do agree that you don't get any of your hours back spent. If you enjoy doing this stuff, you're not spending your time to try and get money back on it. And I think the main thing is that it's built exactly how I want it. But this brings me to the next question, which might surprise you. And the question is, would I do it again? My honest answer is no. I'd do it one time so that I have the perfect Land Cruiser, but it's such a huge task. And when you're doing it for the first time, it's extremely time consuming, labor intensive, and it really tested the limits of my capabilities and my patience also. I'm so glad I've done it, but it's a one-time swap for me. I wouldn't do this again. So then what would I do different? I'm trying to think of this in the context of if you're doing this swap, this is things that would make it easier for you. So if you're gonna do it yourself, you need to be a bit better prepared. Don't do what I did. I did lots of research, but the research wasn't particularly clear, which is why I made that last video, which has a very comprehensive list and some good visuals as to how this all works. Something I'd do different also is I would get mates to lend a hand where they can. I'm a little bit stubborn. I wanted to prove to myself that I was capable of doing it solo, but that cost me a lot more time. It really wore me out physically a few times and mentally. It took a long time to get it done, so don't have an ego about it. Just people will want to help you, let them help. Another thing too that I think is a must, I had a hoist. A special thanks to my cousin Paul. He lent me his shed and hoist for months on end. Without that, I wouldn't consider this swap at all. It's not a backyard swap over a couple of weekends. It's not put your Land Cruiser up on jack stands and swap it all out. Like you could do that, but I think you'd be in it for a ridiculous amount of time. So I think having a hoist is a must. But other than that, I wouldn't change a thing. It was a really awesome learning experience. The community of guys who have built these are really helpful, really nice people. I got a lot of great tips and tricks along the way, and it's given me a lot more confidence in my ability to build my cars how I want to build them. And I'm just stoked with the end result. Like obviously we've still got time to go here and things to do with the car, but as it sits now, every time I look at it, it just brings a smile to my face. So yeah, I think now is sort of the time for the next stage of getting it modified and setting it up exactly how I want it, so we can start doing some touring, some forward driving, and just getting out there and racking up the kilometers on it. So that's the cost breakdown for my FTE swap. If you're thinking about doing something similar, hopefully this gives you a good idea of what you're in for. It is a real lot of work, but if you're into building your dream cruiser and you like the idea of this built not bought attitude that a lot of us Aussies have, I think it's totally worth it. If you like this video, please drop a comment, like it, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments if you've done a swap like this or if you're planning to do it yourself. I'm always keen to hear what you guys are up to, and if you have questions along the way, I'm happy to help people. I want to see as many of these FTE 105s out there as I can. And it's worth subscribing because there's still a lot more to come. So stay tuned for the next update on this build. I'll be showing off how it drives, how the FTE swap has just made it even better. We will go down a similar path to my old grey Land Cruiser, the 1HZ one. We'll do some highway testing. We'll look at fuel consumption. We'll look at temperature and just general drivability of it. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you on the next one really soon.